Okay, welcome back. I'm going to get started. This video is I'm going to demonstrate a few things, including vector fields, and then eventually getting to the porous net microstructure analysis, PuMA, the PuMA plugin. So this will be quite a short video, simply to demonstrate some of the tools without going into too much depth here. So let me first load up, import an object, which I've got already computed vector fields on human trabecular bone. So I've got this data for actually a region of interest, which was segmented from the femur of some bone. And we've got a mesh representation of that, the green line. We just need the region of interest for that. There's two things I want to demonstrate. The first is from the region of interest, a local thickness mapping. This is quite a useful thing, especially for bone. And it's a bit of a follow-on from the previous lesson with a slightly more interesting application. So let's do a sub-sampled and smoothed thickness map of the trabecular bone. This will show us clearly where the thickest and thinnest parts are, and we can visualize this nicely. And also I can show the measurement inspector again in a different context than the previous video. It shouldn't be taking too long. This is quite a fast method to get a thickness map. So after I do the thickness mesh and measurement inspector, I would like to show you the vector field calculation based on the bone, because the bone has structure which is oriented in different directions. The calculating vector fields from that can give us some idea of the directionality. So it's actually being calculated already. I don't need to do the entire thing again, but we'll do a similar thing on the next data set as well. So let's see, we're basically done. Let's have a look at the thickness mesh. You have to click on the little button to visualize it. There we see it in 2D and in, oh, it's not, I don't have a 3D window open yet. Let's go to the layout, views, quad view. And it's not visualized in 3D space yet. So we need to click on the little 3D window, and that's quite a nice visualization of the bone structure. So at the moment, the color mapping is for a blue-green kind of map. We can change that two ways. The one is just clicking on the lookup table. The other is right-click and go to measurement inspector, because we also want to change the range of it. So in the measurement inspector, we can change the range across which we are searching or looking. So we can change do this. And we can just increase that from like 1 10 to the minus 5 up to, I think, 5 10 to the minus 5. The units are quite small here. So there we have more yellow color, where the yellow seems to be thicker and the blue thinner. Actually, we'd probably like to see something with even a narrower distribution. And the thinnest parts should not be blue. I would like to see them. Oh, let's just try a different lookup table, temperature. And at the moment, if we look at this, thickest parts are red. I'd like to see the thinnest parts as red, so we can just click on this button and flip the color table. So we have now the thinnest parts red and thickest parts blue. All right, so that's the thickness mapping. Now, what we can also do on this data is we can make a vector field. So let's just put that off for a minute. We've got this, this regular visualization here. Let's just make that white. And we've got a eigenvector, which is calculated from the anisotropy measurement. So let's see if I can do it from the region of interest. Create a mapping. Where is it? Compute anisotropy. Create an anisotropy vector field. This is where it is, and the spacing needs to be quite small. And this is where you do this. I'm not going to do this now because it takes some time on this data. It's already been done, and there you see the vector fields as a little arrows, so you can make those slightly bigger, and we can make the region of interest mesh slightly more opaque, more transparent, I mean. Let's see if we can get that more transparent. The Windows leveling, I guess. Oh, no. So we can see the maximum eigenvectors showing us directionality across the sample and how that changes smoothly across this region of interest. So that's basically how that works. We can make these arrows slightly bigger, and also we can change the color mapping again, and having the biggest vector, the strongest vectors red and the smallest ones blue, for example. So the strongest directionality is in the red section. So, okay, that's on human bone. Let's move to a different example now. I don't want to save that. What I want to demonstrate next is creating data artificially using the Pore Network Modeling plugin. So under Workflows, Pore Network Modeling, there's something here called generators. So I'm going to create a really small random porous material with 30 by 30 by 30 voxels with 40% porosity. No, let's make it 60% porosity. Generate that, and that's what that looks like. So we're going to use this now to demonstrate. I just wanted to show this. Pore network modeling can also do some calculations and simulations. You're welcome to look into that in the help file and other information there. Right. In this case, I just wanted to demonstrate how to generate some random data, a porous material with three-dimensional 30 pixels in each direction. So we're going to use this to demonstrate the PuMA plugin, which is the new Porous Microstructure Analysis plugin from NASA. We're going to use the solver in this case, and we've already got data, and we're going to apply, in this case, permeability simulation. So you can also do tortuosity, which is like a calculation of the distance of a path through an object compared to just a straight line. The higher the tortuosity is, the longer that path is. Permeability can be done, thermal conductivity, and orientation detection. Let's just do a permeability. And if you want to learn more about this code is well described in a publication, which is also in the help information in Dragonfly. So we'd like to simulate, let's say we'd like to simulate from top to bottom here, which is along the y-axis. And we'd like to simulate velocity. So we'd like to calculate velocity vectors. And we compute that, and it's asking us if we have 1 gigabyte of memory. Yes, we do. and it's quite fast because it's very small, but for this demo, that's enough. After computing, you need to actually publish that. So don't forget to click that button there. Now we have these channels and a modulus channels along the y-axis. So in order to create we need to, let me see, where is it exactly? I think we might have to highlight all of these and generate vector field from data sets. Okay, that's it. So we right-clicked and now we're creating a vector field, vector X, Y, and Z, and modulus. It's already been given to us. We don't need to subsample. This is quite small. And the vector field is now calculated. So if we now go to the main tab and view this vector field in 3D, could be quite nice. We're seeing little arrows. They're really small. We can make them a bit bigger. And we're seeing the flow along the y-axis as we asked for. These are now vector field effective velocities, with the maximum velocity yellow and the smallest velocity blue. We can change this color map, and you see the maximum flow velocity in this region here. So we can also select to view only the largest velocities, like that. And then we can make these arrows slightly bigger as well. And we can also play around with making the blobs itself visible, so we can see where the maximum flow occurs by making that transparent. So it's hard to see at the moment here, but that's basically how the PuMA workflow, that's where to find that and how to implement that. Word of note here, it's quite, the calculations are quite intense on memory usage. So it might take a lot of memory. So use small data to start off with before moving to large scale data. Right, so that's all I wanted to demonstrate right here. What I did want to demonstrate besides this vector field is we've got a data set like this. We can segment, let's just call it pore space, and we want to do the lower Otsu, so we want to add that's the pore space. And what we want to do here, actually it's too much pore space. Let's no, it's okay. It's okay for this demonstration. What I wanted to do is create a, where is it, 3D modeling, create a sparse graph or a dense graph, just to demonstrate that if you've got a region of interest of your pore space and you want to illustrate how this pore space looks with a ball and stick diagram, a sparse graph is the way to do it for having less. There's two ways of doing it, sparse and dense. Sparse puts one ball in the biggest pore space connected by segments, where the dense graph connects many such balls along curved paths. So we can just put all of this off and we can visualize this in 3D. This graph representation can be quite useful sometimes. This is mainly just to show where to find that. And you can map scalar values from simulations onto such graphs also. All right, so that's everything I wanted to say at this point, and I think that covers how to get to graph representations. Maybe I can just briefly demonstrate a pore space, a dense graph as well. The dense graph looks like this, and it's got more, it's got more balls in the ball and stick diagram. Basically, not so easy to see in this example, but there's some examples on many multiple balls along curved paths. Okay, I think that's it for now. I'll be back with the next session starting on deep learning. All right.